welcome to another episode of Young Black Misses. I'm your host, Morgan F. And this two-part series, we're going to be chatting with a new phrase I haven't heard of. Mom twins? You know, moms that had babies around the same time. Mom twins. To be chatting about that, I am chatting with a fellow podcaster about her experience as a new mommy. And the conversation is so hilarious. I don't even really need to say too much. I want you to stick around for it. I mean, we got into some topics. It's about the weird things you just don't expect. We kind of had similar stories too. And we also had a thing where we didn't tell people that we were pregnant um, for a significant amount of time. And so that was just cool to know that we had that in common. So I can't wait for you to hear that later on in the main event. But right now, let's get into some segments. I'm shaking my curls. I'm shaking my curls. Shaking my curls. So actually, I said that with a little sadness, but actually it's going to be a celebratory shake, right? Sometimes you got to be proud of things. One of the things you'll hear in this upcoming episode is that it's okay to ask for help. And I guess, well, if I were going to make it kind of whatever, back in the day, there was a song, I want to say like late 80s, maybe early 90s, there was a song called Superwoman, and it's by a gal named, I want to say Lisa Fisher. She was kind of a Prince prodigy. I'm not sure what happened with her or whatever, but she has the song out called Superwoman, and it's epic to me, right? And some of the lyrics that resonate with me. Well, first she starts off talking about early in the morning, I put breakfast on your table and make sure that your coffee has its sugar and cream. Then she rattles off what her man likes to eat. But then like when you get there, you just tell me you're not hungry at all. You say you'd rather read the paper and you don't want to talk. Um, Later on in the song, she realizes that she's not the superwoman, that she needs love to be able to continue on to be a good wife, a good woman, a good mom, right? And I guess I'm really shaking my curls because I specifically feel women, moms, maybe Black mothers, Black women, period, may have felt like they had to have everything figured out and everything put together, when in actuality, like, soft life is soft lifing. And it is okay to be like, I'm in my I need assistance era. I'm in my what can you do for me era, you know? We always talk about eras. I'm in my what can you do for me era. And I guess I'm shaking my curls at the mentality of superwomanhood because it's unattainable. You can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same blessed time, I don't think. Because I always feel like, okay, personal life is going good, friendship is going good, but work not so much, or just any combination of the three, you know? So that's what I'm shaking my curls at. Just really that whole mentality of feeling like you have to have all the things and be all the things to everybody when you really don't. You literally can just ask for help, whether it be a friend, a loved one, like a service. We talk about this a little bit in the main event. Even if it's like a service, if you need to outsource things like cleaning. Like if that's not really my ministry. I'm not a clean, like deep clean kind of girly. That's not my ministry. I do my best. That's just not what I'm good for. But it's okay for me to ask for help. It's okay for me to know I can't do it all in one day when it comes to cleaning. I just cleaned my refrigerator and I was like, oh, I want to clean the bathrooms and do the floors. I'm like, girl, but that refrigerator took you an hour to do. And I just did the refrigerator, not the freezer too. You feel me? My hands still smell like bleach. Okay, so I'm just shaking my curls at all. All right, guys, let's get on to the next segment. All right, I've got a special guest. Alanna, say hello.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you. It's so good to have a mommy friend on the call so we can just, because my girl is April 5th. I believe your daughter was in April too, right?
Yes, nice.
Oh,
So, you got
girl.
that? Yeah.
It feel foreign to say their birthday or like type their birthday in? You're like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah. When I fill out paperwork and it asks her birthday, especially for her, I'm like, are you talking about my birthday or her birthday? Like I'm still in that phase. Like, who are you referring to? So yes.
Right. No, I totally get it. I'm right there. It's like at the doctor's office, it took a minute to just be like, oh yeah, da da da, that's right. Because I had to go to so many appointments at the jump. So I totally get it. But anyways, we just started chatting. Please let my listeners know a little bit about you. We know you're a new mommy, but just give us a little brief introduction.
Okay. My name is Alanna. I am a new mommy. So she'll be 4 months actually in 2 days. So I feel like, I have made it past the new newborn stage, so you can kind of get a little bit of sleep now. I am a wife. I am a recent grad, a recent transitioner in my career. So I just have like a lot of changes that have occurred over the past year. So it's just been like a whirlwind and I'm still doing stuff. So this is like new news, new news. I just got accepted to a PhD program like yesterday.
Okay. All right,
So
doctor.
that's new too.
Congrats.
But no, I am community advocate, Black advocate, all that mushy gushy stuff, and a STEM baby as well. So
Oh
yeah.
man, oh wow. Well, listen, I'm just so happy to talk to you. We were talking offline, just kind of getting our mommy vibe, so we already know this is gonna be a good chat. So I've really been focusing this season of Young Black Misses, really talking about the intersection of family and just like marriage. So when I've been friendly with your husband for a while. He knows some people I know. So I was just like, oh, let me get your wife on the call. This would be great because like we are in the same road and we're so road, so boom, boom. It's beautiful. Like, so I'm just so happy to meet you and chat with you. And I would love to know, since everything that you've been saying, you've already come back to work. How has that transition been for you? Just like moving back in.
Ghetto, 0 stars, highly do not recommend.
Girl, I
So
feel you.
I transitioned from the corporate world. So, okay, it's kind of a long story, but it's going to loop back around. So when I
Mhm.
worked in the corporate world, in private sector, our maternity leave or parental leave, it was called, was a year. You got a year of paid time off. I know. You had a year of paid
Okay.
time off. When I left my company, I took a corporate buyout. Um, um 3 weeks after I took the corporate buyout, that's when I found out I was pregnant after I had left. And I found out I was 2 months pregnant when I found out. So in my new role, working at a public institution, so I work at a university now. Crazy. As hippy dippy as universities are, there's no official paid maternity leave policy or program. So also because I didn't work here for a year when I had to leave,
Hmm.
I didn't qualify for FMLA.
Yeah.
So I was in an iffy spot where I was covered on the federal level for 8 weeks, but in order to get paid, you have to use your vacation time and your sick time. So I came back to work in 6 weeks because I didn't want to spend or cause a financial tailspin. Being a Capricorn, I would have been in a panic mode. So I came back to work at my 6 weeks versus going off for the full 8 weeks. So that contributed to it being ghetto and having to return because I felt like I wasn't quite ready. I was healed enough to return, but
Right.
being a new mom and a first time mom is that
Mhm.
you're in a panic mode where you're like, I don't want to leave my baby. And I think that's any layer, I guess, of having a kid, but definitely being like a first time mom, I was
Right.
like super stressed. But also I was like blessed because my mom is retired. So my mom and my sister, they keep our baby when we're at work. And, that gives you comfort because it's like at least she's with a safe person. Um, so it's ghetto. I'm back at work. It's fine. My group is very supportive, but would I rather be at home? Yes.
Yeah. I
Um,
feel you.
but I don't know if you would ever be ready to go back. You just kind of have
Yeah.
to make the leap.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So I was telling you before we got on this call, I had 4 months of maternity leave, which 16 weeks paid. Like, God bless you. Thank you. That was beautiful. Like, this job I've had for quite some time now, and I'm just like so grateful for that amount of time. And also, I only have to work in the office a few days a week, so that's been pretty nice. and even just like how they set up the mother's suite. Well, nobody, everyone's kind of older, so like
Mhm.
nobody's really
Using
using that. It's
it.
yeah, so there's like locks and stuff, and I freaked out because I was like, oh my God, what if I lock my pump in there and then what do I do? Like, how would I get this pump out, you know? So I didn't even lock it. I was just like, yeah, it'll be fine. So, but yesterday was my first like day in the office. And did I cry when I got in the car? Yes. But the way God worked out for me is I happen to have like a Bible app on, and it was such a weird Bible story that it totally distracted me before I knew I was at work. I was like, what is going on? So I totally get that transition can be ridiculous because I feel that same way. And I still don't think I'm ready because I even asked today, like, can I know I come in 3 times a week, but can I come in 2 times a week? Because I
Hmm.
can't. And I think one of the like I didn't realize that we had this in common, but my folks also like my mom's retired too. She's, watching my child and she likes to be called the au pair, which I think is cute. Um, but I don't think I'll ever be ready. And I think one of the things I wouldn't know from you, what I'll share what for the biggest thing that surprised me that I'm actually getting good at is asking for help. So I'm curious, is there something that in this 4 beautiful months with your girl, have you realized, okay, like this is something, that I'm learning about myself as a mother?
Yeah. That asking help was a good one. Out of my line sisters, I'm the baby of my line. So I'm also like one of the last ones to have a kid. So that's one of their advice for me was like always ask for help. But they all also know like I don't like to ask for help. So they would just show up and do stuff. So definitely asking for help was a good one that I learned. But I think one of the major things that I learned as a mom is I like to tell myself, and it's a joke between me and Richard, we like to call our baby a science experiment. And I'm like, she's the greatest science experiment. She doesn't even know it. Um, I'd like to say, well, she's never been a baby before, and I've never been a mommy before, and I don't know what I'm doing, but girl, you alive today. So that means we did a good job yesterday. And I just, every day it's just that. So we cheer for the big stuff and we cheer for the little stuff. And that's our thing since we've been saying since the pregnancy is happy, healthy. We just keep reminding ourselves the major thing is happy, healthy. And the other things we could fill out along the way. We could, figure it out. But it's like if you follow all like the mommy blogs and the Instagram pages and the TikToks and stuff, you're gonna get so overwhelmed. Like I was so overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I don't think she's doing enough tummy time. I gotta time it out to make sure, they said 30 minutes a day, but she only be awake for 17 seconds. So I gotta keep timing out the 17 seconds until we get to the 30 minutes. And I was getting overwhelmed. And then I was just like, you know what? My parents didn't have tummy time. I wasn't a tummy time baby. So I could walk. So it'll come together.
Yeah.
So give yourself grace, but I ain't never been a mama before. She ain't never been a baby before. So we gonna figure it out together.
Girl, I'm about to put that on a poster. This is our first time your first time in this world. My first time as a mom. And I'm the youngest child. So
Me
sometimes when
too.
I feel the type of way when they be like, oh, second child syndrome, like da da da. And I keep saying this to my husband. I'm like, the way that we just be looking at her and pouring into her, I'm thinking if we're blessed to have another child, are we gonna be able to give this same energy? And my husband's like, well, that child will get more because they got her daughter too. And I'm like, oh, you're right. But watching an Instagram, watching a YouTube, watching other people, because I go to a breastfeeding support group and
Mhm.
I see the girlies with their kiddos on the little, the pet blankets and they're doing the tummy time. And some of these kids are older. And then I'm looking because I'm kind of comparing because I'm like, dang, how much they weigh? My girl ain't da 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 da. It's just, I feel like that's another thing. Like, hey, this is your race. This is your child. She on her level. She on her road and she gonna be all right. But yeah, that tummy
I,
time thing is a trip.
yes. I felt that way for just a hot second because so we waited almost into third trimester before I told people we were pregnant because I didn't really look pregnant, so
Are
I
we the
didn't wait
same
with it.
person? Are we-
So so it was like I had peace for a real long time. And like I kept telling Rich over and over again, I just don't want to be overwhelmed with other people's expectations and questions. And one of the things that people will always ask, they always ask, are you going to have a natural birth or are you going to breastfeed? And I was like, well, I don't have any pressure to breastfeed, but I said, but I'll give it a try. I'll do the lactation counseling. But I was like, it's not a big deal to me. And I
Mhm.
remember talking to someone, I don't remember who it is. And they had said along the lines like, you should really try it. It's better for the baby, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, but they all gonna eat the same chicken nuggets when they three. And when I say her face was just so shocked, I'm not stressing myself. Like, yes, do I want to try? Yes, I'll give it a try. But if it doesn't work out, I don't want to overwhelm myself to the point of mental despair for them to eat the Wendy's anyway.
What you mean it's not the Burger Kings, or McDonald's? You got McDonald's. But the Happy Meal was our generation, right? But that
Correct.
that is so true because I feel like that I've heard someone say comparison is the thief of joy, but fed is fed. Like if I give her a bottle that I pumped, or if I give her a bottle that came from a canister, she's still eating, period. But I mean,
100%.
whatever's most important to you. Like I'm like a eco-friendly girly. We cloth diaper, right?
Okay.
And so some of the pressures that you may have had, like with, because nobody asked me if I was going to breastfeed. I think they just assumed because I'm that kind of girly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But once I said cloth diapering, they were like, God bless you. And then like, well, I say, oh, it's not really that bad. Mind you, she's not on solid foods, right?
Correct.
But they're like, wait till she's on solids. And then someone else was like, oh my God, it's going to be so much better when she's on solids because you could just flick the thing in the toilet. And I'm like, that's gross. Okay, tap in. So it's just an interesting dynamic of like who, and I also wonder if just as being Black mothers, and I am in kind of a predominantly white space, I guess, considering the where I work and that breastfeeding class I go to, and I actually spot out Black people in the room, people of color, period. There's one person of color, and she doesn't say anything to me, what that irritates me, but we're moving along. But I just also think that the different parenting styles from different races may kind of be impacting my thought because I was really
Mm-hmm.
into Montessori style, and I still really like it. But I
Same.
honestly don't think that's necessary. Like tummy time, like it's kind of whatever your child is gravitating towards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you've had any like mommy pressure, like, or not even like even mommy guilt this early in the game, and like how you've been coping with it. And then I do want to circle back to the and not announcing because we need to have a conversation about that.
Okay. So, in the beginning, it was pressure. But I think the pressure subsided because I have a good partner. So one thing I can say, um, I I just turned 34 this year. So this is my first baby at 34. And a lot of my
Same.
friends, I don't know if it's a millennial thing, but a lot of my friends wait until like 30 and above to have kids, right?
Yeah.
So we're in our own little cohort. My mom had me when she was 35. So it didn't really like it was never in my mind where I felt like rushed. But I've been saying to my friends, just looking at their experience, your partner and your support group can make or break your pregnancy experience and your postpartum experience. So I did have pressure on myself, but because I had such a good partner, it was like he kind of released some of that pressure. Like he would remind me, like, girl, you don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing either. Like we in this together. Like, so we do our little, Wonder Twin fist pumps to each other when we get her to stop crying. We don't know what we did. We just guessing and checking. Um, but I would say the first time like mom guilt hit me was maybe like she was 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and she was just screaming at night. Like she would just have this thing where at night only she would scream. And I literally called the hospital. I was like, okay, I think I broke my baby. Because the first week and a half, she was so quiet. And this girl won't stop screaming. I was like, is it colic? And they was like, well, has she been crying like 5 hours? And I was like, no, it's been like 2. And they like, oh no, she fine. She just babying. And I was like,
She just baby it. Come on now.
it's not the same baby I bought home though. Um, and then I was talking to one of my friends and I was like, she said something and it caught me off guard. And it was like, yeah, when I heat the bottles. And I was like, wait, you heat bottles? I think in the hospital, they just assumed because of my age and like we looked like we knew what we was doing, that like it was like our second or third kid.
Yeah.
And I started to formula feed in the hospital because like 10 minutes into the lactation counseling, I was like, oh girl, you can go. Like I'm done. Um, but they give you pre-made formula. In the
Mm-hmm.
pre-made formula, you don't have to heat. We were looking for a
He
space to heat in the hospital. And she was like, oh no, you don't have to do that anymore, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that you didn't have to heat bottles anymore. It was you don't have to heat pre-made.
pre-made.
So I took it as you didn't have to heat bottles. And I'm like, oh my God, has this girl been screaming at night because I've been giving her gas by giving her cold bottles? And I just burst out crying.
Mm.
And Richard was looking at me and he's like, are you okay? And I was like, I feel like I've been torturing her for 2 weeks. Like she's in excruciating pain because of, my mistake and I didn't know what I was doing. And that's when we came up with the rule of we never been parents before. She's never been a baby before. And everybody's just learning this great science
I love it.
experiment. So when it gets like a lot of pressure or like confusion, definitely lean on him, definitely lean on my friends that have already been mommies. But definitely constantly reminding myself, girl, you don't know what you're doing. Happy, healthy, and alive.
I
That's all I
love it. I love it. Okay. But you've been talking a lot about your husband, Richard. And before we got on this call, no, he was a guest of the show. He's homie, right?
have.
Before we got on this call, you played a clip that he had said, and I'll set it up for our listeners, and then through the magic of editing, you will hear it, where I asked him about his self-care.
Mhm.
And so I just want to get your response to that. And then I would like to know, you as a 4-month-old mommy coming up, what is your self-care like?
Uh, other thing, I legit enjoy my me time. So, like, I got this weird remedy that as soon as I get home from work, before I do anything else, I have my one chair in my house and I just sit there and like I put my phone down. I just kind of put my head back a little bit. I don't go to sleep, but I just take a deep breath and just like have my moment to just do nothing for like a quick 10-minute break every day. Um, and lastly, the new thing I'm into, I got back to reading. Um, Reading kind of takes you away from the realities of the world and it puts you in a whole different world. And yeah, so I started reading the what's that, Charlemagne's new book, The Shook One,
Just one.
latest book. Yeah, and so far so good. I'm on chapter 2, but I just found 15, 20 minutes to just read that, take my mind off what I went through at work or whatever it is. And yeah, for me, I'm golden at this.
No, so it's so interesting to hear him talk about his self-care, because we have a close relationship, but I'm also a firm believer, we're a firm believer in people having their own thing. So he has a podcast, I have a podcast, but I don't listen to his podcast. I don't listen to his interviews. That's his thing. Unless he asks me for advice on something, it's kind of like your baby. I don't want to touch it because I don't want it to be like, let's critique this thing. It's your thing. You stay over there in your bucket. I'm going to stay over here in my bucket. So it's interesting to hear his thoughts on things that he does for self-care. Some things I know about, some things I don't. So that was interesting to learn something new. It's also interesting because that clip is before we had Amara. So I'm like, now I
Yeah,
don't think
that's
he
from
has much.
2019. Yeah.
Now I'm like, I don't think he has much time to read.
Yeah. And we
As
here because the book.
right. So yeah, that's interesting. For me, for self-care, it's interesting because a lot of my self-care is the same. Your girl loves to take a nap. I will nap anytime of the day, any place, location, temperature. Like having a nap releases my brain and I could wake up and conquer the world. So that's definitely self-care. I'm a podcast girl. Um,
I can wake up and conquer the world. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, he said same thing. I just want to call that out just in case we both didn't hear the clip. Feel like I can conquer the world.
Yes.
How long have you
I'm
guys been married, by the way?
we got married in 2016
Okay, so you're at 8 coming
and
up.
then we've been dating since 2010.
Okay. I'm sorry to cut your thought off. I
No, you're
apologize.
good.
Your
So
podcast? Yeah, tell us about the podcast.
sleeping podcast, I am a true crime girly. So I find in an interesting way peace in the mystery. So I listen to a
Mm.
lot of, Dateline, crime junkies, all that type of stuff. Um, and then music. I am a heavy music girl. Like
Now, what are we listening to?
when I say everything but country, I can do everything but country and jazz. Something about jazz that makes me on edge, and I can't figure out what it is. But I go from like rock, like I could go on the spectrum. I could do like Paramore, and then I could go all
Mm.
the way back to like the 1950s and listening to like the Mamas and the Papas. Then I could do some
Oh, yeah.
funk. I'm just all. It literally is just like, what am I into today? Which way is the wind blowing?
I bet if you got an Apple playlist, you know how they do this, they update like favorite music and then it's just randomly weird. Mine is kind of conflicting because I have some gospel mixed in with some ratchet music. I'm like, Father, forgive me. We just gonna skip that little song.
You know,
My
you know your
bad.
heart. You know your heart.
Amen. He does. He does. And I could just real quick. But I think that's so important as new moms to take time for ourselves, just to have that self-care, whether you can sit down and read a book like maybe your husband does. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't do that anymore. I'll have to share that clip with him at some
But
point and see what he thinks.
two things I think I left off that I definitely would recommend that you said
Oh
it, like
yeah.
mommies, especially being women, especially being Black women. Two major things I always recommend as self-care that is non-traditional. Get yourself a cleaning lady
Ooh.
and get yourself a massage membership. Those are
Ooh.
two things on my list. So I do have a massage membership. I try to at least get one once a month. If I don't use it, then they pile up and you can use them over and over again. But that's like
That's
my
nice.
zone. It helps get myself back together. But definitely I learned as an industrial engineer, outsourcing could be good. The same thing that it would take me all day to clean my house, a lady can come in and do it an hour and a half. So if I work for 2 hours and I could pay to have my whole Saturday back where I could actually relax and mentally and physically get myself together versus, because once you start cleaning up, that's a whole nother day of work.
Yeah.
You really didn't get a break and now the weekend is over.
Right. See, for
Outsourcing.
me, yeah, absolutely. See, for me, my outsource is if you want to come visit and you over for more than 45 minutes to an hour, you go ahead, sweet. I'll get you a chore. No, for real. I put it on my list. I feel like we have so much in common that, I feel you, you reach out, I got your back. But I'm curious, like you have this really great support system out there. How have your mom friends been helping you? And what's like the biggest piece of advice maybe they provided you?
Um, Mom friend. So my best friend is a mommy. I'm her son's godmother. He just turned
Mhm.
3, my little baby Logan. Um, but all that, like my line sisters and different sorors. I think the major thing is like them reflecting on things that they didn't have and kind of filling that in for me. So even when they had kids and I didn't have kids, my major thing is I always prepare meals for them and took them for their family. So I would do like big batch cooking and then like twice a week I would take them food. So after I had Amara, they would bring me food. They would come over and help clean. Those things are actually helpful to you as a new mommy. I think, and then they also provided me with advice, but also like their tips and tricks. So of course, as a new mom, you don't know, what diaper cream to use. And,
Hmm.
do you really need a crib? Do you really need this thing? So they were giving me insight like, girl, don't worry about getting them glass bottles. This bottle is just fine. Don't worry about trying to get this contraption where it's $500. You can get this thing over here that's $90. It does the same thing and it's just as great. And that has been very beneficial because there's so many things marketed to mommies, marketed to babies, and then you actually learn from like the doctor where they're like, we actually don't recommend that. Or you learn from your mommy friends like, yeah, you don't like it's good to have a crib, but if you don't have the funds or the resources or something else is more important, like that baby's not even gonna sleep in that crib for 6 months. They recommend room sleeping. So get a lounger, get a bassinet, get this type of car
Right.
seat. So I think that's been the major help And then also being able to lean on them when I don't know things. Like clearly I didn't know about warming bottles and my mommy friend helped me figure that thing
Right.
out. So knowing somebody that's like in the trenches with you when you're up in the middle of the night, like when I would be up doing middle of the night feedings. I have friends that had kids that were like under one that they were still up doing things. So just having someone to talk to or, explain things to, those are actually really helpful as well than someone, financially supporting you. It's just
Right.
somebody to talk to and they understand and advice. So yeah.
I feel you. I feel you. I think the biggest thing for me is trying to make a new friend. I think I got her number, so I think we're cool now. Making a new friend through my breastfeeding support
Mm.
group. I mean, she's got a 6 month old, so it's like she a little ahead of me, and that's just been really beautiful to be able to connect with her. Have you like sought out new mommy friends? You like, look, it's what they say, no new friends.
Uh, I, I mean, I don't want to say like no new friends, but I haven't really, I haven't really sought out any like new mommy friends. And like I said, I think it's just because when I say so many of my friends have just had kids, like
Hmm.
COVID, like, so they're literally 3 and under. It's like, I don't really have the need to have
Yeah.
new mommy friends, but also if someone is like, inherited into the group, I wouldn't turn them away. I'm just not like actively seeking like, oh, I don't have anybody that I could, access to or XYZ. So like for example, one of our closest friends, their daughter just turned 1. So like they're just like every time their daughter goes up a stage in clothing, they're just like, here's a trash bag of clothes. Another of my friends, him and his wife, they had 2 kids during COVID, and he's like, I'm done. He had 2 daughters. So literally he's like changing table, this, that, the other, bassinet, girl, it's yours. So I've been able to leverage that and kind of work that ecosystem. But down the line, you never know. Maybe my daughter becomes a dance girl and none of our other friends do dance. So now I have to find new mommy friends that are in the dance mom clique. It's just right now, all she's doing is tummy time and trying to stay awake. So
Out here fighting her sleep already. I feel it. But a couple more things. One more question for you, and then I want to play a quick little game with you. I don't know your reasoning for keeping things tight about your pregnancy, but I had like a lot of infertility issues. So having just even getting to the point of being like pregnant this long, that's why I was like, I don't want nobody to know, right? And so I feel like a lot of times when people would be like, "Oh, your pregnancy went so fast. I didn't even know." Like, blah, blah, blah. It just kind of felt like and I don't even show my daughter on social media. I'm cautiously trying not to say her name on this podcast
mhm,
because she didn't ask for this. She didn't want to do any of this. She don't know, right?
correct.
But like holding her so tightly like that to me and not even sharing my pregnancy or like even posting pictures, I slightly regret that, like doing like the bump pictures.
Mhm.
But other than that, I don't really regret anything about not saying it. But I'm curious if you've had reflected back about your delay and wondered maybe what do you do it differently?
I actually don't regret anything. Um, so similar to you, I was diagnosed with PCOS in high school. And which they told me then, like, you probably, if you ever had kids, you'll probably need fertility treatments, et cetera, et cetera. So when me and my husband first started dating, like literally the first few weeks of us dating, I was like, I don't know how serious you think this is, but I have this condition and I may not be able to have kids. So if kids is a deal breaker for you, I may not be the girl for you because I don't want you to wake up at 40 and now you're angry at me because you never got the kid that you always desired. Um, so that's why when I found out I was pregnant, I was already 2 months pregnant when I found out I was pregnant because I didn't I'd never been pregnant before. And we had been together from 20. So just imagine from the ages of 20 years old all the way to 34, nothing. And we weren't like trying. So that was another
Same.
thing. Um, so it was that. But then also my fear, I have anxiety. So my brain always goes to the worst case scenario. So my thing was I
Right.
didn't want to tell a bunch of people and something happened. And then you have to go back and tell them, oh, I'm not pregnant anymore, or we lost the baby, or, whatever, whatever. Um, but also it took me a while to adjust to actually being like, oh, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also had a anterior placenta. So I couldn't feel her kick until almost my third trimester. So she was fine. It's just I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but an anterior
Yeah, but you
placenta,
go to
yeah.
explain.
So it's in front of your baby. So usually when people can see the movements and stuff, it's because the placenta is behind the baby. Mine was in front of it. So it was like I couldn't really feel anything either. So it was just like this weird concoction of things. But then
Mm.
also my major thing was I was like, I'm not a huge people person. My husband's the people person, not me. So I was like, I don't really want people to like talk to me. I don't want them to touch me. I don't want their advice. I don't want their opinions. Like
Yep.
I had to made it like I still remember a conversation with my sister-in-law and I love her dearly, but she was like, are you gonna do a natural birth? And I was like, why would I do that? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, do God make doctors and doctors make epidurals? And I think I'm going to go for the epidural. Like we've known for hundreds of years that childbirth is painful. And I feel like I don't have nothing to prove to nobody. So I'll
Yeah,
go
I
this
blame
route.
I blame
But,
Mary.
but I
So
was
I
like, I could
say,
just imagine kind of
please.
like having that conversation hundreds of times. And then you have the unsolicited people in the grocery store that want to talk to you. And then also with us having, him having a podcast, I'm having a podcast and these different things, like you said, you open up to the different comments and people are like, oh, are you drinking? I saw you drinking pop on this thing, pregnant people not supposed to have pop and this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, and then like you said, we shared a little bit. So like we did share like baby shower pictures, like well after the baby shower. When we had her, we did make a post maybe like a week after, but that was just because they announced it in the chapter meeting and somebody wrote on my wall like congrats. And I was like, oh
Oh,
crap, so now I gotta tell people because somebody wrote congrats on my wall. But we just posted like her feet.
same.
So it was like, but like now occasionally I post her, but I post her like in my story. So it'll be gone
Right.
in like 24 hours. And I don't follow a lot of miscellaneous people on my personal page. Like I pretty
Right.
much know everybody. So I feel like a little bit safer
Right.
around that. Um, so long and the short, like there's nothing I really regret. I guess my only regret is I wish I could just not say anything else.
And just pop up, had a baby, and then just keep it, push it. Yeah, that's a vibe. Because
Yeah.
I didn't really gain that much weight, like 30 pounds. So I probably could have got away with it.
Mhm.
But I just everything you said and the unsolicited advice, like people I told my manager just out of like you need to know, but then
Mhm.
I didn't tell my coworker. I mean, I did eventually, but he didn't notice because he's oblivious to his life. Anyways, I don't work with him anymore, so it's fine. But like, I just feel like this is my body. This is my family growing
And
in
it's also
me.
awkward. It's really,
Yes. And
it,
then it's like they in your sex life though.
so I was gonna say, granted, I'm not gonna cuss, but it kind of reminds me of the Instagram/TikTok where it's like when people see I'm pregnant and they can think like, you know, dick rider. That's why I was like, oh my God, I feel so uncomfortable. Like this is so very uncomfortable.
Right.
Very.
Because it's like, oh, especially when they ask for you trying, like,
That
was,
part.
like,
But
come on.
But one of the key things that I've also learned in life in general, this is a little caveat about my personality. Whenever people ask me something that makes me uncomfortable, I tend to also make them uncomfortable. So when people,
I need to get better at
I've
that.
gotten that like, oh, were you trying? And I go, absolutely not. Or then they say, the one I get is, are you gonna try to have another one? And I was like, I didn't try to have the first one. And then I just looked. Because now we're both awkward. And now at least I don't feel awkward by myself.
I need to practice that in my mind. Oh my goodness. Well, It has been lovely talking to you. I want to play a quick game. I think I'm about to switch up a couple of my responses because of something you said.
Okay.
So I play a game called Marry, Date, or Dump, which you can kind of gather how you might play it. Just depends on how you feel. Oh, so the first question I want to know for you, and I feel like I should switch this up because of what you just said about naps. So I'm gonna throw naps in there. So marry, date, or dump. So I'm going to just throw in naps first. Naps, Target runs, or alone time. Which one you marrying? Which
So
one you dating? Which one you dumping?
I'm going to marry the naps. I'm going to date the alone time, and I'm going to dump the Target time. And the funny part is I used to work at Target and I despise going into Target, but as a person who is utterly like cringeworthy at a Walmart, I kind of have to go to Target by default. But if in a perfect world, I would too not like to be in Target.
I feel like we're the same person. Like everything you're saying, I'm just like, if you was here, we'd be homies, you know? We doing double dates. It's great. But no, I get you. But
I would say I'm an
I'm always
Instacart girl.
married.
I'm an Instacart Target girl. You could bring me
Oh,
my stuff.
yeah. Their pickup is clutch, you know, because then you don't spend as much. That's good. But I think I've always got to do the Target run. That's always the top. Okay, one more for you.
Okay.
Okay. Cuddles with your daughter, cuddles with your man, or mindless TV.
That's hard. So I'm married, cuddles with my daughter. The weird part is I'm not really a touchy person. So it's gonna sound mean if I put mindless TV as dating and then dumb cuddles with my husband. I'm the type of person where it's just like when I'm in the mood, like to be touched, not even like in like a sexual way, we could do, but like I'm also good with just kind of like we could be in the same room. I could have on headphones and he could be watching TV and I'm in a happy place.
Like yeah, see, girl, you did. We the same. Yes, I love that. Except for, yeah, I would definitely date cuddles with my man. But but I get all that because and I think that's what's a beautiful thing about when you know you're with the right person because it's like it just feels good, but you just right next to me and the baby's right here and we just vibing. We don't need to be all up on each other, and I love that. I love y'all's relationship, and I'm so happy I got to talk to you today. Please tell my listeners how we can support you and follow you.
Yeah, so I think the best thing is well, you may know or they may know, we're relaunching our podcast. We had a little hiatus because I was finishing up my MBA. Kayla was finishing up another master's in cybersecurity, and then I found out I was pregnant, so it was a whole hoopla. But we're doing a
Right.
relaunch of She Too STEM. So the best way to follow us, She Too STEM on Instagram as well as on Facebook. And then you could follow She Too STEM on any of your podcast platforms and get caught up. It's a podcast about Black women in STEM and our stories. So interviews and just conversations on surviving in the STEM world. So yeah, that's the best way to find us on there. We post, and even when we're not posting, we're still watching. So yeah.
I love it. Okay, well,
Oh, and
thanks
that's
so much oh,
two as
yes.
in TOO, because grammar. So two with two O's.
Oh. Okay, we're going to drop all that information in the description of this podcast. So you stay right here, but listeners, we're going to go on to the positive tip. Oh my goodness, I loved that conversation. Just the positive tip for this episode is I think it's so important to see yourself in other moms. I think it's so important to be able to know that you're not alone in this journey. And as we were talking about, like we've never been moms before. They've never been on this earth before, our child. So everyone's in a learning curve, and that is perfectly okay, right? Everyone's figuring these things out. And for centuries of centuries, people have been birthing babies and raising them up to adulthood. So if we don't get enough tummy time or whatever, they're going to figure it out. You know what I mean? And allowing yourself that grace, not only to make the mistake, but learn through the mistake. I feel like that's the biggest thing that I hope you took out of this conversation. And I hope that if you've listened this long, you hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube, or you subscribe and share this with another one of your mommy friends, or someone that is kind of newly in that season, or someone that you just believe that will benefit from this episode, whether it be this YouTube link or the podcast. You can follow me on social media on Instagram at Young Black Misses. I'm on the face of the book, but I'm not really that great at posting. I think I need to just start a bulk. Like when it posts to Instagram, just post it to Facebook. Um, as well as if you're on YouTube, yeah, thanks for watching me. But we're on YouTube. You can see my cute little face and my chip nails. Don't judge me. So you can definitely check us out on those medias. And until next time, peace.